So how are they being
suit.
funded now?
Cryptocurrency and bank wires is kind of how they're currently monetizing that content, but holding them accountable. That's one way. Victims are suing. So courageous victims, are suing almost 300 victims in 25 lawsuits across the US, Canada, and the UK. Multiple are class action lawsuits on behalf of tens of thousands of child victims. So they're holding them accountable that way. But
okay, so let's delve into what accountable means. So far you've made the case that the accountability, so far what you've described is something like financial accountability, right? Your organization, your work, and the work of others has radically decreased the number of files that they're able to utilize. You said about 90%, and it's made it more difficult for them to monetize their content. And I know that there are states in the US that have instituted more rigorous age check rules, and Pornhub vociferously objected to that, but that wasn't helpful. And so, but I presume that the money is still pouring in like mad, although perhaps not as much.
This is all for profit, especially when you consider it at a corporate level. These are just calculations, risk, benefit.
Yeah, right.
And the only way that we're going to stop this across the internet is to make the risk too high. It's to increase the risk sufficiently and eliminate the profitability.
So how effective have you and your organization been at publicizing the identities of the people, the executives, for example, who are behind this? And to what degree can you do that? Like, can you name people today?
Well, yes.
Okay, let's name them.
First of all, I would just say it's not just my organization. I want to say that again. So the secret shareholder, Pornhub, was exposed because the former owner of Pornhub actually came forward to me to help.
Why?
Well, he had ulterior motives. At first, he approached to say he wanted to help. He was called the Zuckerberg of porn. So he's the one that kind of put Pornhub on the map almost a decade or more ago. And he kind of exploded this idea of free porn onto the global scene. And he made Pornhub this kind of household brand where, people are joking about it on Saturday Night Live and wearing their apparel proudly in public. And they had pop-up shops in New York Fashion Week and, doing these campaigns around the world. They spent millions of dollars promoting this image of themselves as this mainstream legit brand. They had an arm of the company called Pornhub Cares, where they would do these like philanthropic efforts to save the bees and save the oceans and donate to breast cancer research and, all of these things that they would do, and they would make massive PR campaigns. So, he was kind of behind that. But he came forward and he revealed that the man he sold the company to. He said his name is Bernd Bergmer. And he was found. He was an Austrian. He was living in half time in London, half time in Hong Kong. And so we found out his name. But then a journalist from the UK went on this hunt for the porn king. And he found him. And now he's being sued personally. So it's not just the company that's being sued. Bernd Bergmer. And he's personally being sued. The CEO and the COO, who are also minority shareholders, are also personally being sued because they've been unmasked. And that was a part of this journey.
Anybody being criminally charged in the executive suite?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But they should be. Yeah. And not just in the U.S., like here in Canada. Section, 631.1 of the Criminal Code in Canada makes it illegal to transmit, possess, advertise child pornography, child sexual abuse material. An aggravating factor in that is if it's monetized, if it's for profit. I mean, this carries serious sentences. And there is no question.
But it's not being enforced.
It's not being enforced. And that's the question, is why? Why can't we enforce this?
Are you tired of big corporations pushing their progressive agenda? Then don't give them a penny of your money this holiday season. The Daily Wire shop is your conservative gift headquarters, and Cyber Monday deals are here. Score up to 70% off gifts from your favorite conservative voices like Ben Shapiro, conservative uncles, friends, neighbors, that guy from work who jokes about HR's latest sensitivity training, everyone.
I think maybe it's because people, I'll tell you a little story. So I was ill for a long time. The first podcast I did when I sort of came back I was still in pretty rough shape, was with Abigail Schreier, who wrote a book called Irreversible Damage. And Michael Schellenberger, who's a pretty good journalist in the US, and Schellenberger broke the files on X that exposed this group for what they were. And then I interviewed him, and he said something very interesting. He said that he had been aware, for example, of the interview I did with Schreier, because that was one of the first interviews, along with her book, that really brought this to, say, public attention. And he said he just couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe this was happening. If you look into the details of that kind of surgery, it's so absolutely barbaric and brutal that you can't imagine it. The only thing I can compare it to is the accounts that I've read of what happened in Unit 731 in China, which I would not recommend investigating unless you want to be traumatized for the rest of your life, and the sorts of things that were going on in the death camps in Germany. It's brutal beyond comprehension. And Schellenberger basically said he simply couldn't believe it. And I think there are just places that people don't want to look. And why would we look at our culture and understand that 40% of internet traffic is sadistic, criminal, hedonistic pornography? And what does that say about the culture at large? It's a massive problem.